Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here again with another video for you. This time I'm going to be talking about Episode 3 of Ultimate Spider-Man entitled Doom. Before I get to that, as you can see, I'm giving this headset a try, so let me know what you think about the audio in this video compared to the other ones, and we'll see if this thing is going to stay around. Anyway, so let's get right into the episode. At the start of the episode, we get a recap. And, okay, it's the third episode. It sort of makes sense that they want to do this, but I'm hoping this is not going to become a regular feature because I don't constantly need to be told things I already know. Now, again, I know they're aiming this at kids who may not regularly tune in all the time and may need that refresher, but I just don't think it serves the show well, or it doesn't need to be incorporated directly into it. I think there's nothing wrong with doing this. Like a lot of this does have a tradition in superhero cartoons. I mean, if you're from my generation of fans, you remember previously on X-Men from the '90s X-Men cartoon, and I think that works much more effectively in terms of storytelling, rather than sticking it there within the actual contents of the show itself. So anyway, let's move on. There's some nice shout-outs to the Marvel Universe, Silver Surfer, and Hulk, which I did enjoy. But I kind of think that maybe sometimes they're just trying a little too hard. They just feel like, hey, comic book fan, here's a shout-out for you, enjoy. It just doesn't feel like an organic part of the show, the way they were doing, especially this episode, and doubly so with the Silver Surfers. Okay, I get that this is set in like Queens, New York, so New York City is not exactly a hub of surfing, but those guys, seriously, those guys were skaters. If you're gonna do that, make a reference to freaking Rocket Racer. At least he's a Spider-Man character. So let's get into the humor in this episode. This is one of the big things that I know has been either winning people over, dividing them, or completely turning them off the show. Well, we got some literal toilet humor this episode. Yeah, I can't say that I cared for that particular joke. Okay, here's my main problem with the humor so far. And I will say that even though I have some issues with it, I think it was an improvement over what we saw in the previous episodes. Now that said, I think the problem is, and a lot of this is due to, again, the show being aimed at a much younger audience than I am, is they basically somehow feel the need to slap me in the face with a joke every 20 seconds. Now, look, I deal with kids on a fairly regular basis. And, kids do have a somewhat shorter attention span than adults. That is true. But, they do have an attention span longer than that of a goldfish. Okay, you don't need to treat kids like they're that kid in class who needs to be on the most powerful ADHD medication known to man. And if you've ever had a class or had to, God help you like I did, work with a guy like that, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, just to illustrate. Now, remember the scene where, the little, on the helicarrier where Spidey kind of gets freaked out a little bit and the whites of his mask pop off? Now, okay, I'll give them credit. That was genuinely kind of a funny joke. I enjoyed that sight gag. But this highlights what I think the problem is, and that is they're treating Spider-Man like he's a freaking Looney Tune. Now, Spidey does have a little bit of the Bugs Bunny in him. I think that's fair to say. He's got that sort of humor, and Spidey, like Bugs Bunny, delights when he's tormenting, not evilly, his foes. The way Spidey cracks jokes and sort of riffs on the villains and is always throwing web in their eyes just to laugh at them is very reminiscent of Bugs Bunny screwing with Elmer Fudd. But again, here's Spidey's bouncing around. Basically he's more he's like Daffy Duck on some delightfully illegal substance. And yeah, this is really, it just needs to be toned down, okay? Have a little bit more respect for the audience, even if they are kids, that they can follow a story and don't need a joke every 20 seconds. And make sure you're not throwing in jokes and humor just to throw in a joke, because it's been it's been a while since we had it's been about keep harping on this. 20 seconds since a joke. Okay, you know, have somebody do or say something or do something weird visually. No, okay, we know enough from experience in animation nowadays. The kids can handle a little bit more sophistication than that. So yeah, that is my main quibble with this episode, and shaping up. I think this is one of my main quibbles with the show so far. But let's move on to that. Let's talk about a few of the positives that I enjoyed this episode. I liked when the guys sort of went down the tube in the classroom off to the shield helicarrier. Now, let's just not even get into how the practical implications of how that could possibly work. Okay, it's a cartoon based on a comic book. It's ridiculous. Don't worry about it. I like that it reminded me a little bit of stuff that I'd seen in some anime shows, specifically Voltron, and to even go really, really obscure, Sakura Wars, which is a very underrated series, but one that's not really that well known outside of Japan. But okay, you know, again, that was something that it reminded me of, and I got a kick out of it. I also have to give a nod to the animation team. The fight with Doom in Latveria was actually very well animated, especially when Doom makes that big circular crater and there's boulders and rocks and all that stuff flying out. That was some very, very nice animation. I really enjoyed watching that. Okay, and the whole thing when he and Spidey and Nova were kind of getting into it, and again when the whole team squared off against Doom, they had that little versus thing pop up, and that was very reminiscent to me of Marvel versus Capcom, and even to a degree the Scott Pilgrim movie from a couple of years ago, which being a fan of the Scott Pilgrim comics, I enjoyed a great deal and consider that movie to be quite underrated. Give it a shot if you ever have the opportunity. Okay, another things that I liked was Spidey comparing Doctor Doom's armor to something that you'd find in a D&D game. It's been a while since I've done it, but yes, I am a D&D player, occasional D&D player. So having seen some of the armor they actually do have in the D&D books, yeah, Doctor Doom's really not that far off. He would fit in quite well in a D&D world. And he actually did fit in pretty well when he traveled back in time to Camelot with Iron Man. Go read that story from the comics if you ever get the chance. Anyway, but off on a tangent. One thing that I liked, and this was during the fight on the helicarrier when Luke and Iron Fist were fighting like the mini Doom. It just seemed very reminiscent of the London Bridge is falling down scene from one of my absolute favorite movies ever. Yes, I am of course talking about Army of Darkness. I cannot tell you how many times when I was in college, me and my buddies would not only watch that movie, that we just spouted random lines from that movie at each other at the most bizarre and oftentimes completely hilarious moments. And, you know it, Bruce Campbell was in the 3 Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Yeah, he was the usher, the ring announcer. I can't remember him. I can't remember. But yeah, come on, if you're watching this show, you probably are a big enough geek that you know who Bruce Campbell is. Okay. Oh yeah, I also enjoyed the One to Grow On. Again, if you're somebody my age, you understand what that's a reference to. Okay, but let's hop over to another criticism that I have, and that is White Tiger. Now, I have a concern about her. And if you hang out on TV tropes like I do, far, far more than I should, you may have come across a little entry called positive discrimination. And basically, the idea behind this is that the token, female character, the token minority character, who is often, the one girl on the team, always turns out to be right or better at what they're doing than everybody else. Now, okay, yes, we have Luke, so she's not the only minority on the team. And I'm a little concerned about this because everything she's basically done or said so far since she's been introduced is White Tiger is right. She's the one out of everybody on the team who has the most sense, with Iron Fist coming in a fairly close second, a fairly reasonable second. Now, giving the people that they have working on this show, I'm willing to give them enough credit that I don't think this is going to be something that's going to continue on forever. I really honestly do not think it's going to be every single episode White Tiger is right and the boys are dumb and wrong. No. Like I said, I give the people who are making this show more credit than to try and lay that on me in 2012. What I think we're kind of going to be seeing with her, and this is just my personal theory, this is what I kind of would go for if I was a writer on the show, is she's Hermione. She is Hermione from the Harry Potter books. And if you look at the way Hermione is in the first couple of books, Hermione is often right. She basically says, like, Ron, Harry, you shouldn't do this. This is dumb. Or, Ron, Harry, you should go tell Dumbledore about this. Or, Ron, Harry, you don't know anything. Here, I've actually researched this. I understand what's going on. And, if it had kept being that way, gee, Hermione would not have been a terribly fun character. The fun part, a lot of what is good about Hermione is, as good as she is, as talented as she is, she's not above making mistakes. She's not above letting her emotions get to her. And as we see through the series progresses, she grows and matures, and by the time everything wraps up, Hermione is really pretty darn kick-ass. Now, my favorite Harry Potter girl is always and forever shall be Luna Lovegood, but hey, there's a lot. Hermione, she's cool in my book. So I think this is what we're going to see with White Tiger. That I think she's going to, need to grow as a person to realize that she's not always right. That she's not above the other guys. She's just as much their age as they are. She's just as vulnerable to teenage hubris. I mean, she's even said, like, am I like the only, like, boys are dumb, or am I the only smart person on this team? And while she does probably have a little bit more of the common sense, or at least patience, or whatever you want to say, than say Spidey or Nova, if they want to do this character right, she is going to have to make mistakes. She is going to have to be susceptible to a lot of the same things that she criticizes the rest of the team for, because none of us are perfect, and perfect characters are boring anyway. Who the heck wants to watch that? It's through our mistakes that both people in the real world and fiction grow. Okay, I'm running out of time here, so I need to wrap this up. One other cool thing I liked, the very end, saw it coming, still like the moment where everybody steps forward and kind of claims responsibility for going off the rails. Very classic I am Spartacus moment, but it still works. And let's see, yes, very last, we have Maurice LaMarche coming in as Dr. Doom. Maurice LaMarche is another one of those voice actors in America who has just an absolutely incredible resume. Most people know him best as the Brain from Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs. To me, he in my heart shall always be Egon from Real Ghostbusters, which was my absolute utter favorite TV show as a kid. So, I have nothing bad to see about his performance. He really delivered as Dr. Doom, especially at his little threat at the very end. So yeah, I'm really hoping we get to see more Doom, because he's pretty darn cool. Overall, I think this episode is an improvement of what we saw in the first two, but the show still needs work. It still needs to gel, but it's getting there. Also, attention Ultimate Spider-Man writers, please stop treating Coulson like he's a sitcom character. Okay, Coulson works best when he is just having this deadpan, no reaction to all the crazy superhero stuff going around him. Seeing him freaking out about, lunch meat, this is not The Simpsons. Okay? Please do not do that to him again. Alright, folks, please comment, rate, subscribe, and I will see you next time.